Hey guys, you are listening to Vol, and we're going to do another Infinity Battle Report. This one's going to be a bit newer because we're using the webcam now, and you can see me. And instead of actually recording a slideshow the normal way, I've actually just got the video capture device just to have a look at my desktop here. So I've got the folder open where I'm going to talk about all of these photos from the game, including the Prisma images. One thing that I can do, of course, is I can edit here in Paint. Let's just make myself a little bit smaller here. If I wanted to, I can actually draw little images on top of this, but Paint's not a very efficient way of doing it. So if you guys can suggest to me an application that I could get where I can actually draw little squiggles and things on the actual image itself, that would be really handy, because that way during these bat reps I can go, right, let's just find a situation, okay, and here's a situation. We've got a camo model, and maybe there's a need to actually highlight something. So if we take that same image, we edit it in Paint, and I can zoom out here, and I can say, oh, okay guys, we are in a game where we've got an intruder, and there is Deferson, and I can circle him out so he's really easy to see on the bat rep. So if you can think of a really easy way of me doing that without actually having to use Paint, that'd be great. Without further ado, we're going to go straight into the bat rep here, and it's going to be in Nimbus zone. I'm actually playing my Nomads at this point, and we've also got the new bat rep, new battle mat, I should say, from MicroArt Studio. This is the Ariadne version, so here it is in all of its glory. This is Nimbus zone. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to reach these three consoles in the center of the table, and you're trying to pass a whip check. You get +3 for being a hacker or engineer, and you can download data from them. So you get a point for each of these, and then there are these 4 antennas. So just marked out by the little red coins. So it's red beads. So it's one here, one over here, and one over here. And if you have connected more of those than your opponent, you basically get 3 points, so a lot of points on the board. There's also a Nimbus zone. It's an exclusion zone and a low saturation, low visibility area, which turns off if you connect all of the consoles. And lastly, if you stand specialists and base-to-base with these 3 consoles at the end of the game, you can get a whole bunch of points as well. So it's actually quite a complicated scenario. I will say a few things about it. First of all, it's easier to be passive and defend and use AROs because of the saturation zone. That's a huge deal. The exclusion zone makes it harder to have infiltrating specialists getting straight onto the objectives, so that's quite a big deal as well. If you're the player who has first turn, you can actually connect the antennas quicker, and they can't be reconnected after they've been deconnected. So that means that going first means you're more likely to pick up the 3 points for taking those out. If you're going second, you're more likely to be able to get onto the consoles in the center of the table and dominate them and control them. So I like this scenario for the fact that it's not really about who goes first or second, which is definitely the case in missions like Frontline or Antenna Field. So this is actually pretty cool. The saturation zone makes it a little bit awkward. I think there are probably a couple of factions that may be a little bit better at working with it. In this game I'm using an intruder sniper, so that actually worked quite well, because it's very hard to attack the intruder when you're having to shoot through the saturation zone and low vis, and it's just firing back at you with one bullet. Alright, so just a couple of views. This is a view from one deployment zone here, and then in this other image here we've got the deployment zone and my opponent playing PanO setting up here. So what has he got? He's got an auxiliary team, Fort Observer. He's got a regular Fusilier back here, a doctor on the building along with the NIS HMG. There's a Acontecimento regular with a mine layer. That's what this red marker is. It's actually a mine. And we've got Deferson over there as well. Here's a closer look at Deferson. We've also got a Krakot Renegade, as you can see on this side of the picture. Then, okay, so we've got a sensor bot, we've got, that's the mine there, that's the PAL bot, that's the Acontecimento guy there, we've got an engineer over this point here. On the extreme left-hand flank, here's this HVT setup, and there's the forward observing auxiliary team, so that's how that's looking. On my side of the table, I've got this camo marker, which is actually an intruder. Then we've got a Reverend Healer, a Jaguar. By the way, I don't really like Reverend Healers, they cost too many points. Better to take a Dactari, but I have the model from Ice Storm, so I'm just going to use it. We've got a couple of Jaguars, of course taking the 4 chain rifle Jaguars as you always do. And a transconductor's on back here with the Alguacil, running Alguacils as forward observers with deployable repeaters. My lieutenant is the Custodia down the bottom here, the advanced hacking device. We've also got another Jaguar and a transconductor on this side of the table, and this is our infiltrating camo marker. It's actually a bandit, bandit killer hacker there, and my HVT is set up at this point. My opponent's taking the first turn, so Krakot Renegade moving out. He did deploy first. So Krakot managed to roll up, I think, total immunity and +1 armor, so the worst result you can get with a Krakot, unfortunately. So he's springing forward, gets to a point where the intruder can see him, but I decide not to jump out of camo. Deferson now moves out into line of sight of the intruder, and that's the point you can see here. So there's Deferson way off in the distance, and the intruder's at the foreground, so we'll skip ahead a photo. I believe we've even got a Prisma image for this, so let's grab the Prisma image because it's pretty cool. Here it is here. Prisma. Oh. So that's the intruder, Deferson, and the Custodia. So the intruder shoots at Deferson, doesn't manage to kill him. Don't forget there's a saturation zone. I don't know if MSV ignores the low visibility or not. We were just playing that it doesn't, because it says effects of Nimbus ammunition apply, and I think that Nimbus ammunition is not ignored by MSV. I'll have to check up the rules a little bit later. So after this happens, let's get back to where we were. We now have the NIS moving out. So the NIS was previously on this building, you can see on the corner, so he's moving in this direction over here towards where Deferson is situated at that point, so that he can actually target the intruder. So once we get to this point, you can't see it pictured, but the NIS is further back in the photo, able to shoot through this lane here to hit the intruder. Does actually hit the intruder, but passes its armor save and fails. Chooses to fail guards, pulls back a little bit, goes prone out of line of sight. So that's the solution there. Sorry, I got that wrong. I'm just going to move the webcam so it's up here. You'll actually see the NIS sniper or a silhouette of him right around about there, where I'm hovering the mouse cursor. So you've got the Krakot Renegade here, and the NIS with HMG there, and that's where he actually shoots at me from, way out in the open, which I thought was kind of interesting. Alright, where were we? So he's moving out with a engineer also, and the engineer is not pictured, but it's just underneath this rack of mining blue sign in the distance. So I'm revealing a forward observer, Spectre at this point, shooting at him. It's very hard to hit him with the saturation zone being there though. So not the saturation, the low vis Nimbus. So this doesn't actually end up working. Again, I always like showing off these Prisma images. Prisma is a fantastic cell phone app. It's free and it's really easy to make your pictures look amazing. What I do is I use the filter method just to blend the actual filter, the processor, with the real image so that it's a bit half and half. Great picture. With the engineer surviving, we now have the Krakot moving around here, and of course we've got a bandit which decides not to reveal or do anything interesting. And of course the Spectre in the background, again having to continually move the camera around. Let's just grab the video capture device. Here it is here. There's the Spectre in the background. Alright, what am I obscuring this time? Nothing of importance. So what's happening is that he's ending his turn by putting a whole lot of models in suppression fire. These red poker chips represent the suppression fire. So that will include Deferson, who's looking out along the lane there. It's including the engineer, who's safely behind the building, and the Krakot Renegade with submachine guns. So he quite likes that profile because he's allowed to suppression fire with it. Moving on, I'll take the camera over here, and we'll say, okay, the NIS HMG is down the stairs. We've got the forward observer having moved up, and the doctor back in the building here. So he's also trying to defend this particular bit of the board here, right in front of the building, through to about there where the mouse cursor is. That is where the exclusion zone ends, and I can bring drop troopers on if I have them. Okay. Moving out with the bandit. This is a bandit killer hacker. So Deferzen is there and he's in suppression fire. If he discovers, he'll drop suppression fire. So the bandit just keeps on moving till he gets behind the wall. Or she, I should say, because I'm using the female model. So what she does is she even comes up in the building. There's no line of sight to her from this point. And using Trinity on Deferzen, and Deferzen's also using Trinity back, but it's 3 dice versus 1. I managed to win a couple of face-to-face rolls, but he passed the BTS saves because Deferzen's BTS is very, very good. So at this point I realized I'm just wasting orders because he's got 2 wounds. It's going to be very hard to kill him. What I decided then is just to move out with the Spectre that got revealed earlier. He moves up to this little red glass bead, which is one of the antennas, and he does disconnect it. And then moving forward to take the data pack as well. You can actually see the killer hacker here, just hanging out behind the building. Spectre moves out to attack the engineer, who was in suppression fire mode, but he has to shoot back. Okay, so he's shooting back at 0 range band for suppression, -6 for TO camo, -3 for the low vis zone and Nimbus, and cover as well. So he's -12 if he shoots back, and he cannot hit. So he went for the dodge. Unfortunately, I managed to not actually kill him with my shots. So what happens next is the intruder who's in group 2 decides to use re-camo to actually spend in order to go back into camouflage mode after the Reverend Healer revives him. But my opponent declares an ARO from the Swiss Scud missile launcher on top of this building here next to the antenna and shoots at me. So because I can't re-camo, it counts as me being idle, I believe. So that means we've got this situation where the missile shoots at me and blows me up. Hilariously though, the intruder passes 2 of his armor saves because he's got cover and armor 2 after the missile drops him from 3 to 2. And then there's a Reverend Healer there just to revive him again. I think we've also got a Prisma shot of this bandit situation, which was quite nice. Yeah, go Prisma. So here's the situation where the blast template, which catches the intruder, doesn't actually hit the Reverend Healer, by the way. So she was very close, as you can see, to being struck by the impact template. I think the missile launcher actually ignores cover as well, with being an impact template, but the intruder still rolled high enough, as far as I can remember. So just coming back to the situation, we'll just grab the right image. So that's where we were before. Oh yep, here we are. So she moves across and heals him. He's unconscious at this point, revives him. So the Nest didn't actually manage to shoot him, of course, because he passed his armor save in that case. But the Swiss guard, who's up here, by the way, I can now shoot back at him, but there's a saturation zone, so it's 1 dice versus 1 dice. I think in this particular situation, I need a 10 to hit, and he needs, what is it, 15 minus for camo, minus for so he'd need 9. So 1 dice 10 versus 1 dice 9, and he's got two wounds and cover, so I don't think it was worth me shooting the intruder back, so I decided not to. This Jaguar here, by the way, does not have a Panzerfaust, it's just the chain rifle variant. So I've got another Spectre coming out of hidden deployment, and it moves in to engage this Krakot. The Krakot decides to break suppression fire by hitting me with a mine. So what I do is I'm shooting at him, hoping to kill him. What happens here is that the bullets from the Spectre do not kill the Krakot because he passes his armor save, but luckily I passed my armor save against the mine, so luckily didn't lose the Spectre there, but it could have been pretty ugly. What happens now is that because he's out of suppression fire mode and it's not as dangerous as it previously was, the Custodia, who happens to be the lieutenant, uses the lean out short skill to come out over the ledge so that she can actually shoot this Krakot off in the distance because he's no longer a suppression fire. Note that I should have just done this first. Reason being that if the Krakot shoots, he's at long range with the submachine gun. He's up against ODD and cover, and there's a Nimbus zone as well, so he's actually literally -12 to hit, cannot actually hit the Custodian at all. So I should have just done that in the first place, and the 2 bullets I get through the Nimbus zone actually do kill him. Now it comes over to his turn, and he responds with the Auxilia bot here. doesn't quite get range to the bandit with his template or the mine that the Spectre has dropped. The Spectre, by the way, has actually connected both consoles on this side, or so disconnected both antennas on this side of the field. The Spectre unfortunately gets hit by the flamethrower and is destroyed, but I get to respond with not only the intruder but the bandit to knock out his bot here, so that's what happens there. Then Deferson moves out, and of course he's got Trinity this time, so in his active turn it's his 3 dice versus my 1. I'm not too sure if my camera was obscuring what was happening last photo, but I've got to keep an eye on that. So Deferson using Trinity here actually easily wipes out the bandit, who has not had the opportunity to go back into camo because she's too close to Deferson, would have been hacked otherwise. She's killed. Now we've got the NIS HMG getting to a point where it can actually fire at the intruder. The photo doesn't show it very well, but the lip of his base is just sticking out behind the wall, so the NIS can actually move up and fire at him. It's better odds for him to do that than to use the Swiss Guard, because of the Swiss Guard it's just like 1 dice on a 9 versus my 1 dice on a 10, so he uses the NIS to do it instead, and fortunately for him does manage to kill the intruder at this point. So that frees up Deferson to move out now, and goes to the console. He's +3 for being a hacker, so he easily manages to download the data from the console. Then he moves up and engages with the mine placed by the Spectre. He dodges and manages to survive. Fails the dodge roll but passes the armor save. We've also got a PanO token to show that he's completed that. And then he's coming in with a drop trooper. It's an Akali with combi rifle. Luckily for him that's an HVT, so the intruder's dead. He comes into a position where none of my stuff can actually see him. We've got Deferson continuing to move down through the middle part of the battlefield. There is a Spectre there waiting for him, so he decides not to come around the corner initially. Just comes up very close to it. There he is there, just hiding back behind the Spectre, but what he's able to do is just use a short skill to push out and then come back. I can't remember what ended up killing the Spectre. It must have been Deferson in the end. This Spectre is not a hacker. It's it's one that has not the Ford Observer, the deployable repeater. But Deferson moves out. I think he was using his pistol. I can't remember what he used, but his ballista skill is so good, and he's got so many dice. What he was able to do is he was able to come outside of the Nimbus zone, so that because the Nimbus zone basically ends where this wall does. So if his ballista skill, what, 14 or something like that, he's hitting on like 9s, and the Spectre's needing like a 12, so enough shots with the Spitfire was enough to take that out, even against the TO camo. At this point, it's my turn again, so we've got the Reverend Healer. I know that the photo's quite blurry, but that's why it's useful for me to have the mouse cursor here, and it would be better if I could paint directly onto the photos, but his Akali is in the distance, so we're not involved in the Nimbus zone here at all, so at -3 to hit at long range with the combi rifle, easily able to destroy the Akali here with the Reverend. I guess that's probably why Reverend's better than a Dactari in this point. Just accidentally picking the wrong thing to move around. Here we are here. What this photo is showing here is the battlefield. So we've got a dead Krakot Inspector, Lieutenant's alive over here. He's got a Ford Observer Orc spot over here, so again the Fusilier is able to take that out. Sorry, the Custodian is able to take it out. What the Orc spot team was doing here was trying to capture this console, but he didn't manage to get it. Failed the whip check, I believe. Alright, my turn, and now that the Akali's dead and lying over, I come onto my side of the table with a Zond bot. So not a Zond bot, a Meteor Zond. So Meteor Zond is okay here, just barely avoiding the Swiss Guard, who's actually drawing a line of sight from the building way up there, so he didn't quite get the line across. And now that the Auxilia team's dead, the Meteor Zond can move out. So he's just screaming around the corner here. Auxilia guy's dead, using the bot to actually connect the console on his side of the board. And I had a crack at trying to download the data here, but I failed about 3 willpower checks in a row, so I only managed to disconnect the antenna here and didn't manage to get the data pack. Although, looking at what happens later in the game, I really should have gone for the data pack, because that would have been the difference between winning, a losing, and a draw. So he's now in suppression fire behind the car. That's the end of the turn. I seem to have put a Nomad token on top of that console there. So maybe I did connect that pack. I can't quite remember whether I got that pack as well as the disconnecting the console. I mean, I spent about 8 orders on this guy, so I must have picked them both up. I only need to get disconnect one of the antennas, because to win you have to disconnect more than your opponent, and after them are disconnected they can't be disconnected again. So if I've got 3 out of the 4, that means there's no way possible for him to actually get that particular side of the mission. But with the data packs, you can both get 1 pack each out of the console. So I had one with the Spectre on the other side. Let's just jump out of this and let's go and have a look at the photos, because I mean, taking photos does help quite a lot with remembering things. So here's where I revealed the Spectre. Let's just move it out. We may have got the outcome of this game wrong. So this is the point here. This is the point here where he's got the Spectre's disconnecting the first one, then he moves out and he goes for the second one later. What you can see from this image is that he actually does not get the data pack. He goes for the second antenna, not for the data at that point. So that's what's happened there, and the Swiss guard shows up later. So yeah, what the Spectre probably could have done but didn't have enough orders to was to take that as well, but he probably failed it. Alright, so back, where were we with the Zonbot? Okay, so the Meteor's on. So he now moves him with a nest to a point where he can actually overlook the battlefield. He's picked up this data here. He's moved the engineer here to protect the console so he can actually dominate it at the end of the turn. And then the Doctor moving through, actually healing the forward observing Auxilia before she moves past to attack the Zond, mind you. So what happens is she actually revives him, then the Auxilia team move in to actually use the flamethrower. Webcam's in the wrong place again, excuse me. So this is where she was. She's healed the Auxilia, and then the Auxilia comes back to life and actually starts flamethrowing this thing. I assume that the bot reconnects itself after its controller has been healed back. That completes the classified experimental drug. I traded my classified in for Intelcom in this particular mission. So now he's got 2 models next to this console here. So at the end of the game, he can use either one of them. They're both specialists to count as controlling this and capturing that. Next image, we've also got the Custodia here. So what he's done, by the way, he's moved Deferson into the middle of the table to control the console in the middle, but I'm going to be using Intelcom to get rid of Deferson's specialist ability for that. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to engineer a situation where I can actually remove the guys who are standing guard over the console. So moving out with the lieutenant again, so leaning over the wall, shooting at them, trying to get some kills. I managed to get one of them, but not the Doctor. Running out of orders with her because she's group 2. So the second group, we've got this Alguacil here who gets a line of sight to the console. You can see it quite blurry in the distance, so he's walking out here, shooting across. After a couple of orders, I did manage to get the Doctor, but I moved into the way of the Swiss guard as well, so this got destroyed. But importantly, I've removed the specialists controlling that particular objective. Now, we also have a situation over here. This is a bit of a better picture where you can see where they were. So I'm just lining up a silhouette token over there, just so, because there was a bit of a dispute about whether he got cover or not from that console. Turns out that he didn't. So now I move out with the Jaguar, and you can see the engineer is down there, and the Jaguar moves up, fires his chain rifle, and here's where I got a little bit lucky. I got a little bit lucky because he failed his dodge check and armor save, so chances of me getting this off weren't too high, but I did manage to do it. So what this now means is that he's picked up 3 data packs. He gets 1 point each for those, and then the 4th one is the classifieds, who's got 4 points. I have 1 data pack picked up by the Zonbot, by the Zond, the Meteor Zond, and I get 3 points for having disconnected more antennas. So it will be a draw at this stage, because Deferson, who is controlling this antenna over here, the console, man, it's hard to get it right, antennas versus consoles. So I've killed the troops hanging out base to base with 2 of the objectives, and I've used Intelcom to remove Deferson. So the only way I can win it is by moving out with a and Alguacil, he's only got 3 orders to get there, and he has to basically survive AROs from the Nis, Deferson, who's in suppression fire, and a Swiss Guard. So he actually gets out to this point where he's within one run of it, but of course the AROs kill him as expected. One plan that I did have here was to try and use the Custodia to fire a pitcher out, put white noise down to block the Nis, and then put some smoke grenades with the Jaguars, then move this guy out. But I still would have had to clear a bit of distance here, and that just wouldn't have worked. So I opted to go for this play, and I think that was the right play. But to be fair, what I should have done really is just use the Zond instead of going to suppression fire. I just had another go at capturing the data, because that would have been a much better way for me to win. Unfortunately though, it was a draw. Really good game though. Hope you guys like the images. Really liking the new Micro Art Studio table. I think it's really cool. Here are a couple of photos of where my hidden deployment was. But yeah, really liking the gaming map, providing a little bit of a change. And Nimbus Zone, actually pretty cool mission. I don't know if it's the best mission, but I do like it. I think that it's very specialist intensive, very heavy, and I think one way to win it is really just to kill a lot of their specialists, because it's just so hard to get in there and press all the buttons and do everything you need to do. Anyway guys, signing out for now. Hope you enjoyed this one, and any tips would be great. And also if you can find me an app that will allow me to draw, wave this thing like a wand and actually draw things over the image real time, that'd be fantastic.